Welcome to the Marin Will Try podcast, where we talk about all things endurance sports. I'm your host, Marin Williams, a distance runner who transitioned to triathlon in her 40s. I'm an everyday endurance athlete. I am not anyone who had a college scholarship to with a sport by any means, and I am here to connect with you as someone who is just like you, unless you are a professional athlete, in which case please keep listening. I think I do have some interesting topics to share. Today my question for you is, have you ever felt like a fish out of water when it comes to swimming freestyle? I think that this is something that's pretty common for all triathletes, unless you were on the swim team in school, in which case you are in your element when you get in the pool. But for a lot of us who have had to learn the technique of freestyle as an adult, it was not an easy task. And I'll be very honest, I still struggle with it sometimes. But today I want to give you 11 tips that you aren't going to hear from the swim instructors out there who have been swimming their entire lives. These are 11 tips that are specific to adults who are learning freestyle, because I was one of them. I am coming to you as someone who took swimming lessons as a kid and was a fairly good swimmer, at least at the town pool. I was probably one of the best. I can doggy paddle longer than anyone I know. But when it comes to actually swimming freestyle, which is the technique of swimming that we swim in triathlon, it is a whole different ballgame for most of us. So I know many of you are listening to your coaches, and that's what you should be doing, but you're also maybe watching YouTube videos and tutorials on how to swim freestyle, and most of those are taught by people who have been swimming since before they could walk. So today, the first tip that I have for you, tip number one, is that it takes years, unfortunately, to learn freestyle as an adult. It is not something that you are going to be able to pick up within a month's time if you are a beginner. So with running especially, once you start, I feel like at first the progression is quite rapid. If you stick with it for weeks on end, you're going to notice some progress right away. And unfortunately, with swimming, it's just not like that. It's going to take a lot longer. And so that has a downside, obviously, but it also has an upside, because if you have been swimming for 1 or 2 months and you're really frustrated, please keep at it, because if you keep at it for 6 months to a year, you are going to notice a little bit of progress. And as you keep adding the years, you will start to get the hang of it. So stick with it. That's tip number one. Tip number two, before anything else, before you even worry about breathing, I want you to worry about your head position, because this is something that if you start off doing incorrectly, you will develop a bad habit that is very difficult to break. So you want to be practicing with your head in the water almost to the point where you feel like you are tilting the crown of your head down too far. It's going to feel really uncomfortable, but you want to be looking directly at the bottom of the pool. And I'm assuming that a lot of you are practicing in the pool before you are getting into open water. So when you are swimming in the pool, you want to be looking straight down at that black line, and think about keeping your chin tucked. And you do not want to look where you are going. That is really going to set you up for a bad habit that will take you a long time to break. So when you're swimming in the pool, the black line is there for a reason, and it is to look straight down at it. And as you near the wall, you want to keep your head down. And when you see where it comes to a T, that's when you know you're getting close to the wall. But you do not want to look at the wall. Keep your head looking down at that T so you know that you're getting close. That's very, very important. The crown of your head, the top of your head, should be pointing towards the opposite end of the pool, or if you are in open water, the crown of your head should be pointing towards your landmark where it meets the water. So don't think about keeping your eyes at that level all the time. That's really going to cause your legs to sink down in the water and slow you down significantly. A good way to practice this is to just hold the edge of the pool and kick your legs up behind you and just practice your head position. So practice putting your face in the water, and the front plane of your head should be submerged in the water. Practice tucking your chin while you're holding the edge of the pool with your feet kicking behind you, and get used to that. That's very important. I can't stress that enough. Tip number 3, when you're swimming, the breathing is quite difficult to get used to. And I think a lot of us, and I know myself included, when I first started swimming freestyle, I was so out of breath and I was just breathing out when I was underwater, breathing out through my mouth, so that when I turned my head to take a breath, I was still breathing out through my mouth. So I was having to hold my head up to get a breath for longer because I was still exhaling when I was trying to inhale. So you need to be relaxed enough and disciplined enough to stay relaxed enough to breathe out through your nose when your face is in the water. You can breathe out through your mouth, it's not wrong. But if you can breathe out through your nose, nice and relaxed with your face under the water, do a puff, like an exhale puff, right before you start to turn your head, to take a deep breath in through your mouth when you're turning and your face is partially out of the water. Then you will not have that extra time that it takes to exhale the rest of your air while you are trying to inhale. You don't want to keep your face turned to the side to breathe for a long time because that's going to disrupt your stroke. So this is another thing that you can practice with your hands holding the edge of the pool and your feet behind you kicking. And you can take one arm off the edge and hold it with your elbow up and behind you and just practice. You're going to put your face in the water, you're going to breathe out through your nose, and then you're going to turn your head, keeping your chin tucked and your head in that proper position, and take a breath in through your mouth quickly, and then turn your face back into the water and breathe out through your nose, nice and relaxed. Practice that several times. I highly recommend doing that before you even start swimming, both of those drills for tip number 2 and 3. And it doesn't matter. No one else in your master swimming club is going to look at you weird. If they're all swimming freestyle and using the perfect technique, they all started somewhere. So if you're new to the pool and you are intimidated to do these drills, please get over that because it's very important to do that. So no one is going to make fun of you or say anything to you for doing these. They all know why you're doing them. And trust me, you will be able to progress to their level much faster if you do these things. Tip number 4. When you are swimming freestyle and you are entering the water with your lead hand, you want to stretch your body out as far as you possibly can. So your toes are going to be pointed. You're going to enter with your hand, with your fingertips straight, and going down into the water with your elbow up and stretch your body out. You're going to have to squeeze those glutes. So swimming is not just working your upper body. You're going to have to squeeze those glutes to keep your legs up and stretch out completely. This is going to keep you at the top level of the water so that you can glide easier. If you don't do this, your legs will sink and it will be so much harder to move through the water, and it will take so much more effort and you will tire out very quickly. And when it comes to kicking, people kick in swimming for different reasons and different goals. So when you are in this stretched out position, you are going to kick, but your kick is going to come from your hips. So you want to imagine that there is something around your ankles, and you can even tie a band around your ankles if you have to, but you do not want to kick from your knees, and you do not want to kick rapidly. You will tire out. We are swimming in triathlon for long distances. And so if you see people in the pool and they're swimming and they're kicking rapidly, they're probably training for a shorter distance event of some sort, maybe like a 50-meter or a 100-meter freestyle swim. But that, as triathletes, that's not what we're doing. So our kick needs to come from our hips with our toes pointed, almost like you have a bucket around your feet or a band around your feet. And so you're like a ballerina, but your feet are behind you. So another thing, when it comes to kicking, I want you to think about how one good kick in the water with using your hips and your toes pointed, one efficient kick like that is so much better than 15 rapid kicks. Unless you are only trying to swim 50 meters, in which case 15 rapid kicks is going to be more efficient. But one good kick to move you through the water, to help you glide across the water, is so much better than multiple rapid kicks. Please don't do it, or you will be huffing and puffing at the edge of the pool every time you get to the end. Tip number 5. When you enter the water with your lead hand, you are going to have your elbow up at first and your fingertips are pointing down. You want to enter the water with your fingertips, but you don't want to keep that hand shallow. This is something that I made a mistake on for a long time, is when I would enter the water and I would start to glide that hand forward, I would keep it very shallow, and it's actually much harder then to pull it back behind you. So when you enter the water with your fingertips and you stretch out, also angle down. You don't want to angle too far down, but angle down a little farther than what you would think, and it will be easier than to grab the water and pull it behind you. So this is very important for your shoulder health because if you do keep that hand too shallow and you try to pull back, it's not only going to be significantly harder, but it's also going to make you have a sore shoulder. Hopefully not an injury, but definitely a sore shoulder. Tip number 6, and this is also when it comes to entering the water and then pulling back with that high elbow catch that you've heard of. Probably one of the best tips I ever received when it came to swimming and perfecting my technique is to perform that high elbow catch. You want to think about pulling a basketball behind you. So you've entered the water, you've stretched out, you've gone a little bit deeper than what you thought you should. You have water now with your paddle, which is your hand, and think of that water as a basketball. You don't want the basketball to get away from you, right? So you're going to pull that back behind you, keeping this elbow up. All right, so pull a basketball behind you. Also, another thing when it comes to that high elbow catch, I think a lot of people try to keep their forearm in a 90-degree angle. So if you're on YouTube and you can see me, it would look like this is not correct. So you don't want to keep that forearm actually in a 90-degree angle. You don't have to anyway. It's going to lead to shoulder pain. So when you do your high elbow catch, it's going to look more like a diamond. So if you see me on YouTube, my forearm is actually angling towards my body, maybe 40 degrees-ish. So you're pulling your basketball back, but yet you have this diamond look instead. Much better for the ligaments around your shoulder. You can do it this way with a 90-degree angle, but I don't think it's going to feel good. So I'm just trying to give you a helpful tip when it comes to your high elbow catch. Tip number 7, and this is something that you can practice at home. You don't have to do it at the pool. Well, you don't have to practice it at the pool, but you should do it while you're swimming. And that is to rotate from your body, not your head. All right. So if you watch swimmers, they are rotating as they swim, as they enter the water, let's say with their right arm, their right hip is rotating down and the left hip is rotating up. But their head is not rotating. So unless you're turning to breathe, but if you are not at the stage where you need to turn to breathe, your head stays in the same position. So to practice this, you can do this at home in front of a full-length mirror, and it's going to look a little silly, but you're at home, so don't worry about it. You want to stand in front of the mirror and practice rotating your hips, but keep your eyes and your head forward, looking at your in the mirror the entire time. This is very important because rotation is a big part of what propels you through the water. But if your head is turning both ways every time you rotate, it's going to slow you down. Tip number 8, and we touched on this a little bit ago, but I want to emphasize it again. You need to make sure that you are exhaling all of your air before you take a breath in. So right before you turn your head and you take that breath in, you want to make sure that you have let out a puff of air enough to exhale everything that's in your lungs. Because if you don't do this, and you also don't exhale when your head is out of the water, which you shouldn't do anyway, but if you're turning to breathe and you're taking a breath in, and then you put your face in the water and you're not exhaling everything, turn your head and take another breath in, you're going to have a buildup of CO in your lungs. And when you get to that other end of the pool, you are going to be gassed, literally. And you'll be huffing and puffing, and you won't understand why everyone else at the pool is able to swim back and forth without stopping. But you have to stop and huff and puff, and you think that you're in really good shape. Well, you probably are in really good shape. It's just that you're not getting all of your air out before you turn your head to take a breath. Tip number 9. You are going to see people at the pool who are swimming with paddles. And they're probably going to recommend them to you as well, especially if in a nice way, obviously, but if they see that you would benefit from getting the feel for the high elbow catch and where your hand needs to enter the water, they might recommend that you use paddles. And I would say, as a very beginner, don't use them yet. Maybe for the first couple of months. Start with the first 8 tips that I told you and practice those. But after a couple of months and you start to get the feel for it, it would be a good idea to use paddles, because you can't use them without using the proper freestyle swim technique, at least with your arms, when it comes to the catch and the pull. You have to do it correctly if you're using paddles. But my tip that I wanted to share with you is start small. So you want to start with fairly small paddles and then work your way up, because the bigger they are, the harder they are. So start with a fairly small pair. If the pool where you're swimming doesn't have them, you can get them relatively cheap online, and just make sure that you buy a pair that is not ginormous. And then as you gain a little bit more experience, you can then go back and either purchase or borrow from someone the larger size. Tip number 10. We're almost there. Tip number 10 is to film yourself, because it's going to be very hard to notice just exactly what's going wrong with your stroke unless you can go back and look at yourself and how you swim. And it's actually not as difficult as you might think to film yourself at the pool. It might be difficult to get a lane on the very edge where you can film yourself from the side, but if you can film yourself from one end or the other, you will still be able to see some of the things that you need to change about your technique. And you don't have to have a waterproof camera in order to do this. You can get for very cheap online a waterproof phone case for your phone and use that to film yourself. And that's just in case if it would fall into the water, you have the case on. Don't try to film yourself with your phone without a waterproof case. But if you do have one, I would just recommend, before you put your phone in it and take it to the pool, test it out at home. Put a napkin in the waterproof case and then seal it up however the instructions tell you, and then submerge it into a bowl of water for maybe a half hour, and then take it out. And when you open it, make sure the napkin is still dry. And if the napkin is still dry, then it will be fine to use for your phone. And you can, if you want to, actually put your phone, when it's in this waterproof case and sealed, you can put that then down on the bottom, on the floor of the pool, and swim over it if you want to get that type of angle. Or you can get a tripod and put your phone in the tripod in the case, just in case it falls in the pool, and film yourself that way. But oftentimes I just prop it up against the diving platform and film myself with that. But it really will help to go back and watch that footage, and you can see, oh wow, I really need to get my head down further in the water, or I'm kicking way more than I thought I was. So highly recommend doing that. And the last tip, this is the most important by far, tip number 11, is to relax. And I'm not just talking about relaxing when it comes to your breathing. You need to just relax completely when it comes to swimming. Because I think a lot of folks, a lot of us, while we're trying to learn as adults, we get in the water and we want to be fast, right? We don't want to just get in the water and feel like we're going so slow. But swimming is one of those sports where it's almost like the slower you go and the more relaxed you are, the faster you move through the water. So if your body is so tensed up, this is the best way I can explain. If your body is so tensed up and all of your muscles are contracted while you're swimming and you're anxious, you are more likely to sink, right? It's like your body is so much heavier, I guess, or more dense when you're all tensed up like that. But if you relax and just focus on your smooth technique and the tips that I've told you today, you'll find that you are actually able to move through the water not only a little bit faster, but you'll be able to swim for longer periods of time. So most important is to relax. So those are my top 11 tips for learning to freestyle swim as an adult. If you have any additional, if there's anything that I missed that you want to add, or if you have any comments about the tips that I did share, please leave them below if you are on a platform that allows for comments. And if you are not on a platform that allows for comments, you can always reach out to me at my Instagram. It is Maren Williams Try. That's MarenWilliamsTri. And you can send me a DM or leave a comment on one of my posts. if you have anything in addition that you want to share to this podcast today. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate all of you. You guys have been great. I had so much good feedback and good comments as far as the first podcast episode went. So I'm really happy to be here and sharing with you guys. I just want to thank you again. And if you wouldn't mind, please give me a rating if you're on a platform that allows for ratings, and share this podcast with a friend that you think might like it.